Chop, the original Guillotine League podcast. Everything you need to know to avoid the chopping block. Chop is brought to you by GuillotineLeagues.com. Now, your host, Paul Charchian.
Welcome to a Week 3 edition of Flex Around and Find Out on Chop. I need help to do this, of course, and the first person who is going to help out, a man so dedicated to his modeling, after this show, he's posing nude for Mr. Fulton's 12th grade art class at Flower Mound High School. It is Matthew Freedman.
How did you choose Flower Mound? All places.
I went to Google Maps and I looked for suburban areas in the greater Dallas and general area. And I thought, okay, where could Freedman actually live? Maybe it's Flower Mound. I don't know. Maybe. And
Okay,
next to Matthew.
Yeah, that was, I just want to say that was disturbingly close. That's all I want to say.
Really?
Disturbingly close. Okay.
It looks beautiful.
Yeah.
And next to Matthew, a man who would trade a lifetime of high ankle sprains to give JJ McCarthy his own pristine, rarely used ankles. It is Thor Nystrom.
How you doing,
buddy?
George? How you doing?
All right. Though I don't see your ankles getting a lot of heavy use in the air a lot. I just, that's my hunch.
Yeah, no, JJ can definitely have them. So, yeah, just contact my people.
Yeah, we'll do a surgical replacement. It'll be much like the movie Face Off.
Yeah.
But with better acting if you're in it.
Yeah, well, for sure. I don't know if JJ will be quite as mobile on my ankles, but yeah, certainly willing to sacrifice for the team.
I like that attitude. It's Thursday, so it is time to flex around and find out. Matthew Freedman, do you want to just tell maybe people that are new to this Thursday format, what's the idea behind flex around and find out?
Yeah, the idea is that I am a human wet blanket and I infect other people around me with my negative perspective. And then we take that perspective and look at players who are kind of on that flex borderline. And we look at whether these are guys that we think are safe enough to put in Guillotine Leagues lineups this week.
Perfect. Very well stated. It's almost like you knew I was going to do that, but you didn't. Well done. Well done. It's the wet blanket show. I tried to use AI to get us a picture of wet blankets, and it struggles with a damp, dripping blanket. I couldn't really get it figured out, but at some point we're gonna get our own logo for Thursdays. Before we reveal 9 players who are flex around and find out players, I thought it might be a fun exercise, guys, to have you guess the median winning bid for the most expensive players at their positions so far. So to do that, and now this is through 2 weeks. So we got 2 weeks of data through GuillotineLeagues.com. Let's use the running back position. So far, the most expensive player by median winning bid has been Bijan Robinson. I'll start with you, Freedman. What do you believe is the median bid so far, median winning bid for Bijan Robinson?
Yeah. So, thinking like if you drafted Robinson, if you were able to spend fab to get the number 1 pick overall at the beginning of the year to have Bijan Robinson, what would you give up in fab for that? I think that's sort of the mindset that people would have. I'd say like $700. I'm going to say $700.
Okay, $700. Thor, Bijan Robinson, median winning bid. What's your estimate? Real data.
Well, I'm going to play the game, the Price is Right game, and I'm going to go with $6.99. But I think it's probably a little bit lower than that. But my official guess is $6.99.
I think that is not how Price is Right works. I think you want to go $1 here to give you everything between $1 and $6.99. But the actual retail price of Bijan Robinson, $502.
Yeah.
So on average, people are blowing half of their fab on Bijan Robinson.
I mean, I would expect people to go heavier than that. I guess I'm just being I don't know if I'm being optimistic or pessimistic in thinking that people would pay more than that for Bijan Robinson. But good for the people who are getting him for quote unquote only $502.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in just a second. Wide receiver CD Lamb, Thor. How much do you think his median winning bid has been so far?
I'm going to say $417.
417. Okay. Freedman, CeeDee Lamb as the most expensive average wide receiver. What do you believe?
All right. So now that I'm anchoring to Bijan at 502, I would say CeeDee Lamb would be 450.
Oh, you two are very close. And Thor, you almost hit it on the nose.
Oh,
it is $424.
right.
Nicely done, you two. All right. Now a trickier one. Quarterback. The most expensive quarterback who's come up, and a lot of people had their shots at him this week, Josh Allen, with his lowest fantasy point total in well over a year. How much do you believe the median winning bid for Josh Allen was? We begin with Freedman this time.
150. You don't have to pay for quarterbacks in Guillotine Leagues.
I'll go 151, but I think actually it's probably a little bit over 200.
See, a lot of people, this is all new to a lot of people, right? So they don't, I think, inherently understand quarterback's the most replaceable position in Guillotine Leagues. $400 on the nose for Josh Allen.
I wouldn't have seen that one coming. Wow.
Yeah, you would not have gotten any winning bids on Josh Allen. All right, last one. Tight end. The most expensive tight end through 2 weeks has been Brock Bowers. And, he has come in with a bit of a knee injury. So there was that. Some question about whether or not he'd play last Monday. So maybe factor that in. Thor, how much do you think the median bid has been on Brock Bowers?
I'm going to say 287.
Okay, 287. Friedman?
Before Thor said 287, I was thinking 275, but I think that's too close to Thor. So I'm going to say 325.
325. The correct answer, Brock Bowers, $247. And tight end is the hardest position to fill. You would think you could have flipped to Josh Allen and Brock Bowers, but maybe Bowers' a relatively quiet start to the season has had something to do with that, with the knee injury. So, on the Tuesday edition of the show, which neither of you two are on, Brian and I give bidding advice that basically caps out at $200. And so people come back at us and go, well, okay, you told me to bid no more than $200 and guys are going for $400. You're morons. I'm never going to win anything. And they get upset with us. Here's what I really want you to try to understand. We're trying to save you here. To win your league, you're going to have 8 end game players on your roster. 8 elite players. If you've got to fill 8 players, let's say you drafted 2 end game players, which is pretty typical. You got 2 right and you drafted 2. You got to fill 6 positions over the course of the season with your $1,000 with end game players. That only leaves you $166 if you don't spend any other money on anybody else, which is not realistic. And if you are going to spend money on other players to help you survive bye weeks and injuries and everything else, you're probably down to like $100 per player. For end game players, you just can't be blowing $400, $500 on one end game player when you're going to need 4, 5, 6, or 7 more of them. Because if you blow half of your fab on one player, now you're down to trying to get to your end game players at $50 or $60.
Yeah, one easy way for people to think about this is if you're a kid and your parents are going to bring you to FAO Schwartz every week for the 3 months leading up to Christmas, the very first week that you go, it's going to be packed with other kids and the prices are going to be super duper high. And then each week as you go, there's less and less people in that store. And also there's more goods in it, right? Because the better rosters are getting cut as you go along. So the better deals are going to be available to you later in the season. You're also going to retain flexibility with your roster by holding on. I know people will be like, oh, but Bijan was out there and I had the money to do it, and et cetera, et cetera. If you can't make it through the first month plus with the roster that you have, and you can do bids, to protect, or however you say that, defend, like a price point, but you don't want to. Take it from me, a guy who screwed up in Guillotine Leagues the first couple of years that I did it by throwing money around at the beginning of the season. It's the one way to guarantee yourself that you can't win a Guillotine League. If you blow your fab in September, that's what I would say.
All fair. Look, you're going to need money in December after Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. You can't be blowing it now. You need to stay alive. Not that much. You can improve your team. You can't be dropping that much money.
That's right.
All right, gang, it's time to flex around or find out. As I was trying to figure out my flex players that I want to highlight the risk on, I'm going to give you 4 names of players that I just threw out that I don't even think people are considering anymore. Isaiah Pacheco, Matthew Golden, Jerome Ford, and Mark Andrews, I think, are off the board. I think people have figured out at this point, if you're even still alive with those players, that they are unstartable. Pacheco, Golden, Ford, Andrews. Anybody want to take a contrary position?
No, I almost used Golden in the thing, but today, but it was like I want to go a little bit higher up the board, but I totally agree with that. Even with the injuries that the Packers have at the wide receiver room. In fact, Matt LaFleur a couple days ago was like he was answering a reporter's question. It's like we're not going to rush the development of a rookie just because we have injuries to our veterans in the receiver room. So like, yeah, they're not accelerating Golden's the usage rate with him and the leverage spots that they're putting him into because your fantasy lineup needs the points. Right or wrong?
Freedman?
Yeah, I will say with Andrews, I think he's super risky if you're thinking about him as someone who is worth the price point that you paid to get him. But now that he's, in that tier 3 group of tight ends, I don't think he's any more risky than Hunter Henry or Dalton Kincaid, Brenton Strange, Evan Ingram, but that's the group that he's in. So you have to have the mental shift from putting him with Sam Laporta and Travis Kelce and Tyler Warren. You have to have the mental shift from he's up here to he's down here. But if you accept that he's down here, then okay, I think you can start him, but you just know that he is risky, just like all of those other initial tight ends I listed.
Where I would say I come in a little bit differently than that is Andrew's floor is just so low. The one catch 5-yard kind of floor is a disaster. Whereas most of the other guys that you mentioned, I feel like their floor is more like 3 catches, 30 yards, which isn't good. But man, I don't know. Andrews getting just completely phased out of his own offense right now is really, really troubling to me. All right, let's get to our flex round and find out players. Brought to you by Xfinity. Introducing the 5-year price guarantee. One consistent internet price for 5 years guaranteed. Freedman, let's start with you. Your first flex around and find out player is Cleveland running back Quinshon Judkins.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the odds page at Fantasy Life, and the Browns are 8-point underdogs, so they might not run the ball all that much. Last week, he was still the RB3 in the Browns backfield in terms of the utilization score. If you look at the utilization report we have on the site, he didn't get any of the 2-minute work. He split the short down and distance work with Jerome Ford and Dylan Simpson evenly. I expect his role to grow throughout the season, but he's still in a committee on one of the league's worst teams, and he's a big dog. So in one Guillotine League, I might need to start him just out of desperation. I don't feel great about it. 18 yards with no receptions is a possibility for Quinshon Judkins in this game. Like the floor is incredibly low because of the offense and because of the 3-way committee.
All right, Quinshon Judkins. I like it. I like your take here because there's a lot of steam behind him right now, and this is a perfect wet blanket opportunity for Judkins because there is a lot of momentum after the game that he had last week. Thor, let's go to your first flex around and find out player, Houston quarterback CJ Stroud, coming off a pretty good game on Monday night.
Yeah, and that's not, by the way, Freedman's. That's not the first Brown we're going to be discussing in the show. But yeah, we'll start with CJ Stroud against Jacksonville first. And in fantasy so far, CJ Stroud QB 26. But I saw several of those like start sit kind of columns where people were advocating starting CJ Stroud this week. I have a different take on this one. The Texans have scored 2 touchdowns in 18 offensive possessions to this point, and CJ Stroud himself. You look at the last 17 games he has played, he has an 18-13 TDI and T rate. Not great, Bob. PFF ranks Houston's offensive line last in the NFL. Not a surprise whatsoever. And I actually think it to this point, maybe it's looked a little bit better than it actually is. Charge, you see Ed Ingram is graded as one of PFF's highest graded guards to this point.
That's hard to believe. I don't even know what I'm looking at with that.
Yeah,
yes.
for those of us familiar with Ed Ingram's work, let me just give you a spoiler alert to folks out there. He ain't going to finish as a top 5 PFF graded guard. And then they moved Arianti Ursary, another guy Charge and I are familiar with from around here in Minneapolis. He went to Minnesota. They had moved to, he was bad in the first game at right tackle. They moved him to left tackle in the last one, and he was actually pretty solid, especially being his first game at left tackle. I don't know how much that holds through the end of the season. So, obviously a leaky, bad offensive line there. Then Jacksonville. So you know that you can depreciate CJ Stroud's game if you can get heat in his face. It's the guy that wants that solid throwing base under him. And if you move him off of it, that's where you can start to depreciate his accuracy. CJ Stroud has faced the fourth highest pressure rate in the NFL so far. He's going to be under duress in this game as well. Jacksonville has an above average pass rush, not elite one, but a top 12 type pass rush for them. They also have been good against the pass so far. Opposing quarterbacks ranked 31st in the NFL in passer rating against Jacksonville through 2 games. So Stroud, a guy that needs to accrue fantasy points from the pocket. I don't love his opportunity in this game to do it. Nico Collins, he going to be, we'll see how much he can pull out for them. But the rest of that pass catching core, the rest of the skill talent there, not the best. And of course, a bad offensive line. I'm fading CJ Stroud this week.
I was shocked at the offensive line holding up reasonably well against Tampa. And I don't think that's going to be very repeatable throughout this season for Houston. I'm with you on some of those concerns. My first flex round to find out player, Denver running back RJ Harvey going up against the Chargers. Now, okay, where was this last week? It's totally fair to say coming off a bad game. And as expected, J.K. Dobbins getting the vast majority of the work. But how bad is it for RJ Harvey? Utilization score of 31 ranks him at running back 47 in utilization. He's getting just 22% of the rushing snaps, and the receiving snaps out of nowhere, at least to me. Tyler Bidet watering down passing snaps. Why? I don't know what he's doing on the field, but that's a fact, and that's happening. Now, it's always unfair to take away a guy's best play, but I'm going to do it right here anyway. You take away RJ Harvey's 50-yard run in week 1. Again, I acknowledge it's not fair, but the rest of his runs average 2.8 yards per carry. That's it. Chargers are giving up just 41 rushing yards per game. They stymied Ashton Genty last week. No running back has topped 17 yards through the air against the Chargers. And in fact, if you go all the way back to last year, 8 games, so 2 from this year, 6 from last year, no back has topped 29 receiving yards. I don't see a scenario here where there's enough usage for RJ Harvey to be helpful.
I totally agree with that. It's one where he's got to hit a home run to return value to you. And in Guillotine Leagues early, keep in mind, folks out there, if this is your first season playing Guillotine Leagues, you don't need to be a hero in September. You advance to the next week if you're the third lowest points or if you're the highest points, right? Like you should be prioritizing early in the season floor above ceiling mostly, right? Because you're just trying to avoid the nightmare week where you're the bottom point scorer. This is a great example of that. It might be a little bit different in a standard league, chasing the upside on Harvey. Oh, maybe he can hit a dinger in this one. With Guillotine Leagues, I'm not willing to risk getting chopped by having RJ Harvey in my starting lineup. I'm with you.
Freedman, let's go to your second flex round and find out player. And another bold call. I like that you're ratcheting up the level of difficulty here. This is great. Tennessee wide receiver Calvin Ridley. What's your concern this week?
Well, Ridley is competing with a rookie, Alec Iomenor. I don't even know if I can say his name right. All I know is that Calvin Ridley better be able to say his name, because this is the dude who's coming very close to outperforming Calvin Ridley. If you look at the utilization report, they have similar utilization scores. Ridley was 62, Iomenor. Hey, Thor, how do you say his name?
Alec Iomenor. Or Iomanor.
I thought it was Iomanor.
No.
Yes.
Church got it right.
All right.
Iomanor at the end.
Iomanor.
Yeah,
okay. Yeah. So Iomanor has a 60 utilization score to 62 from Ridley. So these are super close. And this is a rookie who wasn't really expected to do much, didn't enter the league with a lot of fanfare. Early in the offseason, you wouldn't have expected him to be a starter. But man, Ridley is being outproduced 7.9 points per game for Iomanor, just 6 for Ridley. They have similar target shares, 25 Ridley, 24 to Iomanor, but more air yards for the rookie, 41% of the air yards versus 29% for Ridley. Identical 33% shares of end zone targets. And then you just add on top of the fact that he plays in the Titans. The Titans have the league's, and to my eye and to the numbers especially, they have a bottom 3 offense, and I think this might be the league's worst offense. Number 30 in scoring. Cam Ward has 5 adjusted yards per attempt, which is like,
oh,
think
wow.
of like bad Sam Darnold. Like that's the territory that he is in. Now, granted, like he could get better, right? It's just his first 2 NFL starts. He could get better, but I mean, do I really want Ridley in a rookie's 3rd NFL start when he's playing really poorly? And it's not an easy matchup. The Colts are number 9 in defensive dropback EPA. I just see so little upside and so much downside that I think, like, in terms of like how the risk reward is skewed, the risk isn't the risk is not nearly outweighed by the reward in this scenario. So I know, like, based on where you drafted him, it might be hard to bench him, but I just feel like Ridley is really dangerous.
For Ridley, well, I think he's going to turn into a spot starter, and you're going to have to choose your spots wisely in Guillotine, and this looks like it is not one of them. Thor, let's go to your second flex round and find out player. Another player that I've banked on and started in back-to-back weeks in a couple of different Guillotine leagues, but you're nervous here about Cleveland wide receiver Cedric Tillman.
Yeah, I am. And you were, of course, and anyone else that started Cedric Tillman, trusted him first 2 games, you were vindicated. He was a top 25 fantasy receiver over the first 2 weeks, wide receiver 24, in fact. But that's super fluky. As you guys know, so far this season, he is averaging 0.85 yards per route run. Obviously, very, very, very low there, microscopic. Only has 7 catches through 2 games, averaging 37 receiving yards per game. The reason that he was a top 25 fantasy point scorer at the receiver position the first 2 weeks is because he scored a touchdown either one of those games. So you're going to have to extrapolate here, project that he's going to score a touchdown against the Packers to likewise be worth starting for you. The Packers have only given up 1 receiving touchdown to a boundary receiver so far this season. The pass rush, everything like that, the Packer defense looks vicious. It's the reason that all 3 of us are fading all the Browns guys this week, but you have to throw Cedric Tillman onto that pile.
And this is not the last Brown we're going to end up talking about in this show. We're beating up the poor Browns right now, as if they don't have enough problems of their own. Actually, that Browns defense looking pretty legit.
Yeah.
That's one we're gonna be
shout out
paying
Myles
attention
Garrett.
to.
Yeah. Agreed.
Shout out Myles Garrett, defensive player of the year through 2 weeks. I mean, it's early, but that's, I could easily see him going the distance if he stays healthy.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I admit it. Okay, I have another pretty obvious flex around and find out, but my third one is going to be is a lot trickier. This is Travion Henderson going up against Pittsburgh. We saw his dud last week. It's not going to be a 1-week blip, and you drafted Henderson in a spot where you need to start him, but you just can't right now. The usage scaled back dramatically last week, just 3 carries and 2 receptions. And meanwhile, Ramondre Stevenson looked like a viable every week starter in the Guillotine leagues. Henderson's saving grace was going to be his receiving chops, but Stevenson leads Henderson in routes, targets, and even long down and distance snaps. That gorgeous Ramondre Stevenson catch last week was on a play that was originally designed to be a Henderson play, but Stevenson was so hot and playing so well, they kept Stevenson in, and Stevenson made that amazing catch. And here's why it's not changing this week. Henderson had 2 pass blocking opportunities last week. He drew a penalty on one, and he gave up a sack on the other. I think the question is, and I'll ask each of you too, starting with Freedman, should you sabotage drop Travion Henderson and see how much somebody else bids on Henderson? That might be the real question here, right? You drop him and see if you can get somebody to throw $50 on Travion Henderson. What do you think?
That is next level type of saboteur stuff that I haven't really thought of. I like that angle. I will say I probably wouldn't drop him because I do think he has the potential to be someone who comes on in the second half of the season. And so he is someone that I would like to stash because of the potential late season upside. But man, I definitely don't want to be starting him right now.
Yeah. Thor, sabotage, drop Travion Henderson outright. What do you think?
You're a sick man, Charchian. You're a sick man.
I am. This is how you play the game.
That's how you play the game. I love it with you in November when we were doing, over the years doing Fantasy Football Weekly, and like some of just the nasty names you drop as far as like a potential sabotage drop. Like, this guy. Travion, I like where your head's at, but I don't think so. I would have to hold on to him. Similar reason to Freedman, but yeah, you got to work through the usage a little bit. And we've seen this with some of the young skill guys. You just brought up RJ Harvey. Some of those guys, unfortunately, that you have to hold them until later in the season for them to establish a role there. We wanted it a little bit sooner, but it hasn't happened yet. I would hold on to him a bit longer.
Yeah, this is where you guys are. This is where it's all different for me into the guillotine format. I don't got time to wait around for somebody to develop.
Yeah.
This might not be my last chance at RJ Harvey or Travion Henderson. I can get those guys later potentially when their teams get chopped because they're not helping. You can't start those guys and they're not helping your team.
Yeah.
We'll get to our final 3 flex around and find out players after we thank Xfinity. Today's show entirely built around performances that might not live up to expectations, but not with Xfinity. Introducing the 5-year price guarantee from Xfinity. 1 internet price, 5 years guaranteed. Life is unpredictable, but the price of your internet should not be. Get a reliable price and a reliable connection. When we say all in, we mean all in. You get the Wi-Fi equipment and unlimited data included. Guillotine Leagues are about change, roster upheaval, constant improvement. But no matter what, over 5 years, the price of your internet is staying the same. Learn more at Xfinity.com. Restrictions apply. New residential customers only. Taxes and fees extra and subject to change. All right, Freedman, your final flex around and find out player is Cleveland tight end David Njoku. I was wrong about Njoku this preseason. I was very optimistic, and so far it's been middling results and Harold Fannin mucking up the works.
Okay. Well, it's actually Evan Ingram. Sorry.
Oh, it is Evan Ingram.
It's Evan
You're right.
Ingram.
And you had amended that, and I had it wrong. Sorry about that.
It's all good.
David Njoku would have been a fair candidate here too. But let's talk Evan Ingram, who comes in with an injury. Is it ankle? Yeah. Evan Ingram. Sorry about that, my man.
All good. I went further down the board, so a little less bold of me here. But I think I went with Evan Ingram because like people drafted him like a top 10 tight end. And I just think he's incredibly dangerous. Well, good for you. People who did draft, I didn't draft him either. He was on my do not draft list. But Evan Ingram, I mean, man, the data, you might kind of think, all right, the numbers from the last 2 weeks might not be fully representative because he exited week 1 a little bit early because of a calf injury. So he had that calf injury going into week 2. But I think the numbers from the first 2 weeks are actually pretty representative. He didn't do much in week 1 before the injury. And then in week 2, he practiced fully on Thursday and Friday.
Right.
And he didn't have any injury designation entering the game. So what we saw in week 2, I think is pretty representative of the role that he has within this offense. And it is not much of a role. He had 2 targets last week for a 12-yard reception. He has just 5.5 yards per target for the season, and that is in line with the 5.7 mark he had last year. And if you look at the utilization report, he doesn't have even a 50% route rate this year.
Wow.
He has a target share below 10%. He has just 5% of the air yards. I mean, this is like embarrassing stuff. His utilization score is 34. Adam Troutman's is 32. Like he's barely ahead of the number 2 tight end within this offense. And in week 2, he was actually outplayed by Troutman, who had more targets, end zone targets, and air yards. Like if you drafted him in the top 10, I can understand why you might be like, oh, I feel like maybe one more week, but no, like he might not even be worth ranking or rostering in the top 20. And like people were talking about him entering this offseason as if he might be like the Joker in this offense.
Yeah,
like the only Joker is the dude who drafted him and starts him this week. Like he should not be anywhere near your starting lineup. And I think you probably drop him if you have him.
Well done, my man. I like it. Evan Ingram right now, a major disappointment at a position where we just can't afford yet more disappointment. And that has been very, very rough. We talked about the tight end position in Tuesday's edition of Chop. We encourage you to go back to that if you haven't heard it already. Thor, your final flex around and find out player. And this is personal. This is a shot directly at me. New England wide receiver Kayshon Boutte. Why would you do this?
It's actually not. I want to tell people another story from a recent Fantasy Football Weekly when we were recording late August, and Charchian and I we had a draft like during it, and Charchian he went into this long thing about Kayshon Boutte, why Kayshon Boutte was a good sleeper for this season. And when I left and I'm driving home and finishing out that draft, my very last pick of that Guillotine League, I'm looking through the names and I'm like, Kayshon Boutte. I was like, Charchian made some good points there. So I actually took the flyer on Boutte in the last round, and it has paid dividends to this point. Through 2 games, he's been really good. In the opener, Boutte 6 catches for 103 yards. Charchian was putting out his shake your Boutte gifts on Twitter. It was great.
It was.
And then last week, Boutte had a touchdown reception at least. He's been, to this point, New England's wide receiver 1 through 2 games. Boutte leads Patriot wide receivers in snaps by 24 total snaps over the number 2 guy. His route share is number 1 on the team by a wide margin. I'm talking about like 15% above the next guy. But last week, the touchdown was his only target of that game. Drake May distributes the ball around based on circumstance, based on the game script or whatever. In this game script, this matchup, Boutte is going to be drawing Jalen Ramsey on a decent amount of the obvious passing down type situations out there on the boundary. The middle of the Steelers defense is the thing that has been susceptible. And I think you're going to see the Patriots attack that thing more, both with the running game and then also the intermediate passing, which was a huge strength of Drake May's game going back to North Carolina. I think this is a game where Kayshon Boutte, as good as he's been so far, is used as a decoy. I would be fading him in Guillotine this week.
Friedman, what do you? I need an unbiased third party on Kayshon Boutte because I can't trust myself right now. This is, I feel like this is that he's a player that hasn't exactly. I wouldn't say he's earned every week starter status, but I give him the benefit of the doubt. What do you think, Friedman? You want to break the tie here?
I think he could be inconsistent, but I want to push back a little bit on the Jalen Ramsey matching up. Ramsey did play more this past week on the outside. In week 1, he played more as the sort of the
slot
or like the nickel corner, but so he might play a little bit more on the outside. But you're still going against a defense in the secondary that could be down 2 starters in Joey Porter Jr. and strong safety Deshaun Elliott. So I think if you can attack a secondary that's down 2 starters, regardless of who you might be matched up with on like 40% of your snaps, I still think that's probably a plus scenario.
Drake May looks legit. Dude's a baller. I think we were all many of us very optimistic heading into the season on Drake May. It's all playing out in real time. I think Drake May has looked really, really good. Our final flex around and find out player. Higher level of difficulty for me on this one. A player who is tied for the league lead in receiving touchdowns, and I'm going to urge you to show caution on Chargers wide receiver Quentin Johnston as he goes up against Denver. Denver's part of it, of course. We'll talk about it here. You probably already know Denver's good secondary. They've got arguably the best tandem of cornerbacks in the league, and Riley Moss and Patrick Surtain. And Johnston almost never plays the slot. He plays outside, so he's going to see Moss and Surtain, and maybe even a lot of Surtain. The Broncos have allowed the 6th fewest yards to receivers, just 113 yards per game. If Johnson is going to have to split 113 yards, let's just say evenly, with Ladd McConkey and Keenan Allen, 113 divided by 3. Carry the 1, divide by 0. That's 38 yards. That's all we've got to work with. 38 yards if McConkey, Keenan Allen, and Quentin Johnston are going to have to split up this work. And McConkey and Keenan Allen run from the slot a lot, so they will have the opportunity to see less of Riley Moss and Patrick Surtain. No wide receivers scored on Denver this year. And if you go back to last year, only 3 receivers have scored touchdowns in the last 10 Denver Bronco games. Teams are running very successfully on Denver, and I think we're going to see plenty of running from the Chargers in this game. All right,
I
gang, what do
agree
you
with
think?
that one. I agree with that. I almost I was thinking about Quentin Johnson for this episode before I saw that you were on there. I love the resurgence for QJ. We do have to shout out
Yeah.
QJ how good he's looked initially after people were throwing the dirt on him, calling him a bust early, but not a great matchup for QJ this week. I'm with you.
I will say, keep an eye on the Chargers injury report in Ladd McConkey. He was out on Wednesday's practice with a bicep injury. So I would say, Charge probably reserves the right to change
Yes.
slightly this, just based on McConkey's availability. But yes, in general, I would
Fair
say
point.
a really tough matchup. And if McConkey is in, and we're kind of assuming that he's going to be in, if McConkey's in, then yeah, it's not enough football to go around for all three wide receivers.
All right, guys, great job. We have flexed around and found out 9 times. Well, we'll find out in the future. 9 different times here. We encourage you to stay tuned to the Chop Podcast, not fan. Well, also stay tuned to Fantasy Football Weekly. Thor's going to be on with me.
Sure.
That'll drop on Friday, Thor. We'll be breaking down 15 matchups with letter grades on every player on Fantasy Football Weekly. And we'll be back Tuesday for more waiver wire advice on the Chop Podcast. Freedman, Thor, great job today. We'll talk to you next week.